chess friends, hope you are doing well. Today I have a very astonishing and brilliant chess game that was played between Dragon Chess and me. In this game, I sacrificed almost everything, all my pieces on the board, to trap the Black King. This game features a highly interesting chess opening and gambit, which I am going to show you, so let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with e4, we have e5 and bishop c4. Usually, I don't place my bishop early in the game. Instead, I go with my usual knight moves. Back to the bishop move, I may consider playing knight c3, then, after black plays knight c6, I can go with f4, following the Vienna Gambit. The city of Vienna is very cool and reliable. After the capture, I can go with d4, creating two center pawns. Whenever black plays queen h4, it does not matter, of course, it prompts me to consider king e2, losing the ability to castle, but you can actually go with knight f3, kicking out the queen and capturing the pawn on the next move. Playing knight d5 would be very good to attack the pawn and the c7 square. This position is non-theoretical, and black will face consequences. The game could continue like that, but in our actual game, instead of knight c3, I decided to go with bishop c4. Dragon responded accordingly.
What happens if you don't consider f4? Let me try f5, because you are nothing but a dish of my food, having stocks of fishes, I can eat you for dinner, breakfast and evening snacks.
I replied, hey Dragon, your brain is as full of mud as your fat belly, you do not know anything about me. Now, capturing the pawn on f5 is a very bad choice because black can go with knight f6, there are no advantages for me, and the f5 pawn will be a liability because I cannot protect it with any of my pawns. Playing h3 or g4 does not protect the pawn because black can respond with d5, on the next move, he will capture the pawn, and by castling, he will get an open f-file. There are no advantages for me in capturing the pawn on f5 in this position. I didn't consider any natural looking moves like d3 or knight c3, instead, I further said to Dragon, if you can consider a gambit, why can't I? I am the godfather of chess, let me play a gambit with d4, now, capturing the pawn on e4 will result in an open diagonal for the king, where I can invade by playing queen h5 check. Many players might think of playing g6, but it is a completely rubbish move because I can capture the e5 pawn, attacking both the king and the rook. The game will be over. In this position, many chess players might even think of playing king e7, but it is another type of rubbish move, trying to protect the rook and sacrificing the king's safety. Now, I can play queen takes e5, checkmating the king. The game will be checkmated in just 5 moves, like an inexperienced chess player losing to a grandmaster by a gambit. Going back to the position, we discovered that f takes e4 is not possible, which is why Dragon just considered e takes d4, a good move. Playing knight c6 would be a good choice for black on the next move. I went with knight h3, a sneaky move to consider knight g5 followed by knight f7. Dragon tried to defend that by playing knight f6. You might ask if black just played a blunder because white can consider knight g5, but no, even if you play knight g5 to attack black with knight f7, black can easily consider queen e7, attacking your e4 pawn, even if you dare to play knight f7 to attack the rook. It does not matter because black can respond with d5, and you will notice that your e4 pawn is just a liability, it is pinned, and the bishop is under attack. No matter if you capture the pawn or not, I can just recapture and your knight will be under attack, the game will be over, and black will gain significant advantages in this position. Going back to the position, knight g5 was not considered by me. I played e5, pushing my pawn forward, and Dragon played knight g4. Still, you cannot play knight g5 because Dragon can respond with knight takes e5, getting enough compensation to protect that square. After castling, knight c6 happened on the board. I pressurized the e5 pawn by playing rook e1. Many chess players, like amateur players, might think I'm considering knight takes e5, but I can punish them by playing f4, and they will lose the knight. This is why in this position we have bishop e7, trying to block the half-open file of my rook. The worst case for me is that I cannot protect my e5 pawn. Playing f4 to protect the e5 pawn is not viable because black can respond with d6. striking in the center, and the center will be a liability for me. So, let me share a beautiful and amazing quote with you. A savage mindset is a conditioned mindset that knows quitting is not part of the plan. It knows that it has to find a way around any and all obstacles to complete the mission. Stay hard. Going back to the position, playing bishop f4 might be a desirable move for many chess players, but black can play a sneaky move g5, which you can never accept or imagine because black is more clever than you. Despite the black king being exposed, it does not matter because he will just play long castle, and black will gain significant pawn advantages on the king side. Going back to the position, we did not see bishop f4, instead, we saw the bishop moving back, and then knight captures, followed by knight d2 and knight f3. Now I am attacking the d4 pawn and the e5 knight. Thanks to the light square bishop, the black king cannot short castle. This is an advantage for me, which is why Dragon replied to me,
"Hey Stockfish, let me go with bishop f6 protecting the knight. Whenever you capture the d4 pawn, I can just recapture. Even if you capture back the pawn with your queen, this provides me a powerful opportunity to attack your queen. Despite your open e-file, I can grab your hair and smash your face in this chess position."
I replied, "Calm down Dragon, calm down, let me play c3, eliminating your pawn. Despite creating an isolated pawn, I still have the light square bishop, which has significant advantages. With my knight on d4, I can control the e6 square. My other knight on f4 will be powerful, turning into an octopus on e6. My knight on e6 will control your entire board, holding your head, hands and legs. Alright, we have queen e7 followed by bishop d7. He is trying to protect the position and preparing for long castle. Let me go with knight f4, developing my piece and preparing for knight d5. The worst case for black is that he cannot protect the d5 square with any of his pieces. The queen is almost trapped because she is in a cage. After playing long castle, we have knight d5, attacking the queen. Where should the queen go? Many chess players might think I'm considering these two squares, but believe me or not, playing queen e8 is a very bad choice. Like Dragon chess, his hair will fall out, and he will become bald. I can slap him on his bald head by playing knight takes c7, sacrificing the knight. After you capture, I can go with knight b5 check. Playing king d8 is not viable due to knight takes d6, which will efficiently fork your pieces. After the king moves back to b8, I can capture the pawn on d6, forcing your king to move. Can you guess what white should play in this position? Many seemingly genius but actually foolish chess players might think of queen b8 check, but it is a completely rubbish move. The best move in this position is knight c7 check, forcing the king to move, and then knight a6, a double check on the king. Whenever the king moves, queen b8 check followed by rook takes e8 and knight c7 will fork the king and queen, ending the game because you are checkmated like I checkmated you, just like Rashid Najmadinov. Going back to the position, we discovered that playing any natural-looking queen moves might seem logical, but they are actually vulnerable. This is why after the queen moves to f7, despite gaining an open file for the bishop's attack, I just capture the pawn because your queen is under attack. When the queen moves back, we have knight b5, attacking the d6 pawn. Protecting the d6 pawn with your bishop on e7 looks viable, but I can logically play bishop d5, attacking your c6 knight. After the king moves, the rook comes to a6, and I can go with knight a7, a very bold move. Many chess players might think of capturing the knight because they are not as strong as me, they are just my students. After you capture, I can go with queen b3, attacking the b7 pawn. When the rook moves, knight takes c6 happens. If you capture it with your knight, you will lose your bishop. This is why some chess players, who can only think 2 or 3 moves ahead, might consider bishop takes c6. The position may look protected, but you know what? Every situation has an unseen reality. I can invade you by playing queen b6 check, forcing the king to move. Bishop takes e3 will follow, dominating the diagonal, and the game will be over. None of your pieces can block the bishop's attack. Going back to the position, we discovered that playing bishop e7 to protect the pawn is not viable. Even playing bishop e8 to protect the pawn with the knight is not good either. Nobody can give the pawn an umbrella in the rainy season. This is why after the king moves to b8, we have bishop a3, increasing the pressure against the d6 pawn. After the bishop moves, bishop d5 increases the pressure on the pawn, and my rook and queen can come to the b file. That's my strategy. Most chess players might think of capturing the d4 knight, which is an eluded move, but it does not matter because my bishop will get an open file along with my rook on a1, so after a6, I played rook b1, sacrificing my knight again. Dragon said,
"Hey, stop, please, I know all your moves and thinking process. I know that if I capture the knight on b5, I will immediately fall into your trap. After you capture the pawn, your queen will come to b3, attacking my pawn. I cannot move my bishop back to c8 due to knight takes c7. Therefore, after I move my king to c7, trying to protect the pawn with my rook, followed by queen b3 rook b8, you will consider f4, attacking my knight. The rook will get an open file, and when the knight moves, I know you are very clever and as strong as Alpha Zero. You will not capture the bishop before capturing the knight. You will consider rook b1, attacking my b7 pawn. I will notice that my c6 knight will be under threat. When the bishop moves back, bishop c6 will happen. I cannot capture the bishop with my pawn because my rook will be hanging. Even king takes b6 is not possible. The game will be over for me, and I will lose all my advantages because of your brilliance. Going back to the position, what do you expect from me, Stockfish? I will capture your pawn. I will not capture your knight because I know the vulnerabilities. Let me consider rook c8.
Dragon, you seem more logical and authentic than your looks. You are trying to protect your king side, but you know what, Dragon? I can smash you by playing f4, attacking your knight and bishop, which is why the knight cannot move. For instance, many chess players might think of playing knight g4, but they forget about my brilliant rook sacrifice. I can sacrifice my rook like no one else. Rook takes e7, sacrificing that rook, and then I capture the pawn on d6 because your knight is gone. After the king moves, I can even sacrifice another piece on b7. Watch, Dragon, watch, I will sacrifice all my pieces to checkmate you. Now the rook file will be open, knight c7 check comes on the board, and the king cannot move there. As the king moves, I can again sacrifice my knight on c6, prompting you to capture. Then, after bishop c5 check, it will be checkmate, every square is trapped, and the game will be in my hands. Alright, going back to the position, we discovered that you cannot protect your knight. This is why after the rook moves, Dragon knows that I cannot capture his knight because my knight is under attack. So, I played queen a4, after the knight moves to g4, protecting his bishop, I played a cunning move, knight a7, a brilliant and astonishing move. The point is that if you dare to capture the knight with your knight, I can respond by playing rook takes b7, forcing the king to move. And then queen takes a6 will lead to checkmate on the next move. If queen takes a7, the game will be over for him. Going back to the position, we discovered that even many chess players, including 2000 rated players, might think of capturing the rook with the king, as it is a desirable move by many grandmasters, but grandmasters are just shoes on my feet. I can sacrifice my rook on the b7 square, a cunning and beautiful sacrifice. Have you ever sacrificed your rook like this? I know you haven't because rook sacrifices can only be made by Stockfish. After the capture and rook b1 check, the king moves, and I can play the vibrant move bishop b4, smashing you with bishop a5 on the next move, killing your king. No matter whether you capture my bishop or not, the rook comes, bishop check, and as the king moves back, I can just capture your rook, forcing you to capture, and then queen c4 check will arrive. The bishop blocks, and knight takes e6 happens. You can see that my pieces dominate your position, and every piece of mine attacks your king. The game will be over for you. Alright, going back to the position, we discovered that you cannot capture the knight because the knight is like a princess. You cannot even talk to a princess without an appointment, so Dragon Chess responded with bishop h4, attacking my rook. I responded with knight takes c6. You know what, Dragon Chess, I can fire up your position with my brilliant pieces. Even if you capture with your bishop, I can play knight takes c6, attacking the king. The pawn is pinned, and as the king moves, I can brilliantly sacrifice my queen on a6. Have you ever sacrificed your queen like this? I know you cannot. As I told you, welcome to the Stockfish show. The game is full of brilliant inaccuracies, I will play knight e7, a discovered check. As the king moves, the rook comes, and rook d7 will afford the game, checking the king, and then rook b1 will arrive. You can see that the game is over, the king will be trapped. So, going back to the position, we discovered that you cannot capture my knight, which dragon chess didn't accomplish in the game. We have the king there, and knight takes c8 followed by a bishop check. As the king moves, what should black consider in this game? I am threatening to capture the pawn on b7, which will lead to checkmate in just a few moves. What should you play in this position? Even capturing the knight with your rook will result in a very bad situation. After the rook captures on e1, and after captures happen on the board, the worst case scenario is that you cannot capture my knight with your bishop, because there is knight e7, forking your queen and bishop at the same time. The worst case scenario is that you cannot protect your bishop by playing any queen move like queen d8 or queen e8, the bishop cannot be protected. So, let me share an inspirational quote with you. Self-care isn't just a gift to yourself, it's a gift to others. It allows you to be the best person you can be to them, too. So, going back to the position, we have the queen there, the rook moving there, and the bishop moving back. Rook takes b7 puts the black king in a vulnerable situation. After a couple of moves, we have knight a7, knight takes g5 followed by knight c7, and knight takes d6 occurred in the game. You can see that I am just threatening checkmate in just 3 moves. What should you do? You have no option. He just sacrificed the queen, and after a few moves, I checkmated him on the b8 square. It was a completely brilliant and astonishing game. As I told you at the beginning, I hope you enjoyed the game very much. Wishing you all the best. With folded hands, I bow down to you.